So my story of becoming a Christian doesn't have a drop mic moment where I had a huge epiphany, but rather more of a journey, a quest for God's love. Since a very young age, I knew in my heart God's existence, even when I was a little child. What I didn't know and tormented me for years was how I was going to get God to love me and accept me. My understanding of God's character was very distorted. I never thought he could love me for many reasons. I went to an Irish Catholic school, elementary school, where prayer and confession were a daily and weekly thing. Confession was my favorite part of the week because I believed the priest had direct access to God and would put in a good word for me, maybe. It was always at the end of the day, and I couldn't wait to get home and tell my parents about it, that I'd spoken to Father McDonald, which was a running joke. Susy loves Father McDonald. My parents found it so amusing how excited I'd been that I was to speak to Father McDonald. What they didn't know was I was happy that he would speak to God on my behalf. My parents had turned away from religion. They weren't atheists. They still had baptized me and I went through all the Catholic sacraments, but their experience of religion was really skewed. They immigrated to Canada in the 50s from Spain. They left their country because it was run by a dictator, General Franco. Many Spaniards turned away from religion because the Spanish Catholic Church and the dictator worked closely together to maintain power. The Spanish Catholic Church gave its official blessing to a dictator who kept assassinating people. So it was quite a dichotomy. Despite the political and religious talks heard at the kitchen table, I always felt jealous that my friends didn't have to hear all of this war talk at the table and were brought to church on Sundays. I thought for sure God loved them. I developed great insecurities as a result. I was scared that God would never love me. As the years passed, my faith dwindled, but one thing I never stopped was praying. Went to college and got married in my late 20s. My husband came from Greek. My husband's parents followed the Greek Orthodox religion. When I met his parents, one of the first questions they asked was, "What church do your parents go to?" I was mortified. Once again, I was reminded that I didn't belong to God's chosen people. I was expected to convert and to be baptized once again in their church in order to get married. And so I did. My husband's a wonderful person, but he was torn, as this is what he had learned, and no one in his family had married outside Greek. First couple of years of our marriage were challenging, especially when my first son was born, as there was a lot of family meddling, trying to push the religion on me and my children. I was so unhappy, but I certainly didn't want to share it to anyone, and went on with life. I would take the train to work every morning, always feeling heavy-hearted. One morning, the train was running late, and an older lady stuck up a conversation with me. We developed a friendship as we saw each other every morning. She was such a kind lady, and she would speak to me about God. One morning in conversation, I broke down in tears and told her about my in-laws meddling and how they made me feel my son would not be loved by God unless they taught him religion. I didn't know what to do. This thinking was so warped. She listened carefully, consoled me, but didn't say much, and off we went to work. The next morning, we saw each other again. When she saw me, she said, "I have something for you." I looked and I saw she had bought me a Bible. Wow, my first Bible ever. She looked at me in the eyes and said, "Read it, and all your answers to your questions regarding God's character is in this book." I did read the New Testament, but I think my insecurities were so deep-rooted, I still struggled to being accepted. The only one thing that I knew for sure was my love for my children, and I would do anything for them. So about 10 years ago, when my eldest son graduated from high school and got accepted in pre-med, I was thrilled beyond belief. my golden child. 2 years into his program, however, something happened in his brain, which until this day we still can't understand. He went off the rails and started skipping class, hanging out with the wrong crowds, and worst of all, not coming home some nights. I completely fell apart and fell into a deep depression. I felt for sure God was punishing me and causing pain to my son for something I had done. I was in such a dark place. Everything I had ever feared came true. God didn't love me. The thought of never laughing and smiling again was unbearable. I had thoughts of ending my life, but I didn't want my boys to live the consequences of my actions. So I kept thinking, maybe it could be accidental. It was crazy. I started smoking and drinking wine to numb the pain. One evening during a snowstorm, I went out in a t-shirt to smoke a cigarette. I was so depressed. I remember staring at the sky, and my eyes caught the sight of a wooden electrical pole that looked exactly like the shape of the cross. At that very moment, I saw the image of Jesus, body nailed to the cross. My eyes were glued to that pole. I heard him say to me, "I'm here for you." I just remember I started crying and repenting of all my sins and promised him I would devote my life to him forever, but that I needed his help. I think I stayed out there at least 30 minutes and didn't even feel cold at all. I felt his love. It was such a beautiful feeling. Things ultimately got worse before they got better for my son. However, I felt this peace among chaos. I couldn't explain what had happened to me that night. I started attending a Christian church, and there I learned who God truly was, his true character, and not the one I so long misunderstood. God did love me, no conditions attached. One verse that I always read and read during that time that gave me comfort was Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. So that's been my journey, and I'm still in my journey to know more about Jesus. That's it.
Beautiful. Susan, that was so beautiful. And, I don't love that you feel this way, but I know that you might know that that has been one of my greatest struggles as a Christian, is to believe that God actually loves me. And when I hear another sister talk about that, it makes me feel comforted, because it's so nice to know that I'm not alone in that sometimes, And I just wanted you to know that, like, for you to be on that train, and for that lovely woman to listen to you, and you said she listened to you really intently, and she really just listened to you. She didn't like give you a whole lot of advice or not. She just listened to you. And then the next day, for her to show up with that Bible and to say, everything you need to know about God's character is right here written in this book. I mean, talk about a servant's heart. Like, how beautiful is that she just showed up with, literally the answer, the one answer that there really is. She just said, this is his true character. This is what you need to know about God. And I just find that to be so powerful and such a lesson for us all, that it's not about the blah, 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 blah. Sometimes it's just about, like, oh, well, here's the Bible and everything you need to know, and every answer that you've ever needed is right here. That's huge for me, because sometimes I feel like, oh, I have to have the right answer. I have to be prepared. I have to do it. And sometimes the right answer is just leading somebody to that book, the holy book. And that is just so powerful. I could hear a lot of pain when you're talking about your son, a lot of, a lot of pain in there. And I want you to know that you are also not alone in that, um, you are so supported here, and we love you so much. And I also wrote down that truly God's character is something that I want to study. It's something that I I need to understand more about what his character is, because when I start getting into my head, and Casey, you always tell me this, it's like if I don't know God's character, how am I supposed to have an intimate relationship with him? And so getting to know his attributes and understanding his character is is of critical importance if you're a Christian. And so for me, it's like when I talk about a servant's heart, and when we talk about a servant's heart, if we're not taking time to study Jesus's character, God's character, I know I'm in for trouble, because then I can't decipher when things happen in my life. I can't go, oh yeah, no, that's not God's character. He wouldn't do that to me. I'll think God can do, like you said, like God punished me when your son was having problems. He's doing this because of, something I've done. I'm somehow damaged. I'm somehow not okay. And so God is punishing me. And so, and I was speaking for myself when I said damaged. Because I always feel like I'm damaged goods, but I love, love, love that you talked so much about God's character, because that is that really spoke to me. And I want to thank you for that. So with that, we are going to hand it over to our beautiful Clarissa.